let's think about something for a second. Where did you first learn about money? For almost all of us, it came from our parents. But what if you had two dads? And what if their advice about money was the complete opposite? Well, that's the whole idea behind Robert Kiyosaki's legendary book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And today, we're going to unpack the powerful lessons that really show the divide between the wealthy and, well, everyone else.
Right out of the gate, the book hits you with two totally conflicting ideas. On one hand, you've got Poor Dad, who always said, the love of money is the root of all evil. But on the other hand, you have Rich Dad, who believed the lack of money is the root of all evil. I mean, this one disagreement is basically the fork in the road that leads to two completely different lives.
So, let's meet these two dads. First, there's Kiyosaki's actual father, who he calls his poor dad. Now, this guy was the definition of success on paper. A PhD, a great government job, but he was always, and I mean always, worried about money. Then you've got his best friend's dad, the rich dad. This guy didn't even finish 8th grade, but he ended up building a massive financial empire. The difference between them is just night and day.
And you know, their advice was a perfect reflection of their lives. Poor Dad's advice is the one we've all heard a million times. Go to school, get good grades, and find a safe, secure job. He was basically training Robert to be a good employee. But Rich Dad's advice? It was something else entirely. He said, learn how money works so you can make it work for you. He was teaching him how to be an owner. And at just 9 years old, Kiyosaki made a decision that changed everything. He decided to learn from his rich dad.
So how did Rich Dad start these lessons? Well, it wasn't in a lecture hall. It was with a real-world job, dusting canned goods in one of his stores for a pathetic 10 cents an hour. And believe me, the point wasn't the money. It was to give a 9-year-old a very real, very powerful taste of what life is like for most people.
And this whole experience was just a total psychological roller coaster for him. After about 3 weeks of this boring work, Kiyosaki was done. He was angry, he felt used, and he was ready to quit. But when he finally marched in to confront Rich Dad, he walked right into a brilliant trap. Instead of giving him a raise, Rich Dad hit him with a crazy offer. Keep working, but for zero pay. Now this sounds insane, right? But it was a calculated move to snap him out of that work for a paycheck mentality for good.
And this is where Rich Dad drops the first big truth bomb. He explained that most people's entire financial lives are run by two emotions. First, there's the fear of not having enough money. That's what gets you up in the morning and off to a job you might not even like. Then, the second you get that paycheck, greed kicks in, and you start dreaming about all the cool stuff you can buy. That push and pull, that's the engine of the trap. And that trap, yeah, it's got a name we all know, the rat race. It's that endless hamster wheel of get up, go to work, pay bills, and then do it all over again. You're running as fast as you can, but you're not actually getting anywhere. And Rich Dad's first lesson was just so critical. You can't escape a trap if you don't even realize you're in one. By working for free, their brains were forced to think differently. Suddenly, they spotted an opportunity that was right under their noses the whole time. A local store was just throwing away old comic books. So, what did they do? They collected all the comics, set up a little library in a basement, and charged other kids 10 cents to come in and read. All of a sudden, bam, they were making money without even having to be there. And that was the light bulb moment. They finally got what it meant to have money work for them.
That first little business is the perfect setup for what is truly the most important rule in this entire book. It's what Rich Dad called the one thing you need to know to get rich. And it's so incredibly simple, which, funny enough, is probably why so many people just completely get it wrong.
Okay, first things first, what is an asset? Forget all the complicated jargon you've heard. Rich Dad's definition cuts right through the noise. It's this simple. An asset is something that puts money in your pocket. That's it. A rental property that pays you each month? That's an asset. A stock that pays dividends? Asset.
And a liability? Well, you probably guessed it. It's the exact opposite. A liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket. And this one simple distinction is the financial quicksand where most of the middle class gets stuck, buying things they think are assets.
So let's actually see how this cash flows. For a poor person, it's pretty much a one-way street. Money comes in from their job, and it goes right back out to cover the essentials like taxes, food, and rent. At the end of the month, there's just nothing left. It's a life of survival. Now, take a look at the middle class. The paycheck is bigger, sure, but what happens to it? It goes straight into buying liabilities. A mortgage on a house, a car payment, credit card debt. All these things just create more expenses that suck money out of their pockets every month. So they're still in the rat race, they just have a fancier cage. And this is the secret sauce. This is how the rich do it. They focus all their energy on that asset column.
They use their income to buy things that generate more income, like stocks or businesses or real estate. And here's the magic part. The income from those assets is then used to buy even more assets. It's this beautiful, powerful cycle that just keeps building on itself.
So this brings us to the book's most famous and definitely most controversial idea. That house you live in, the one everybody calls your biggest asset, is it really? Let's use Rich Dad's simple rule. Does it put money in your pocket? Nope. Between the mortgage, the property taxes, the insurance, and the repairs, it is constantly taking money out. So by this definition, your home isn't an asset at all. It's your biggest liability.
This leads right into the next big lesson. You have to mind your own business. Rich Dad was very clear that there's a huge difference between your profession and your business. Your profession is your job. It's what you do to pay the bills. But your business? Well, your business is what makes you rich. The absolute best example of this is the story of Ray Kroc, the guy who built McDonald's. When he would give talks at business schools, he'd ask the students what business he was in. They'd all say, the hamburger business. And he'd say, nope, I'm not in the hamburger business. My business is real estate. He knew the real money wasn't in selling burgers. It was in owning the incredibly valuable land under every single franchise.
So minding your own business doesn't mean you have to quit your job. It means you keep your day job to get cash coming in, but you use that cash to build your real business, your asset column. So your profession might be being a doctor or a teacher, but your business is building a portfolio of stocks or real estate that's making you money even while you sleep.
Okay, so if it's this simple, just buy assets, then why isn't everybody rich? It's a fair question. And the answer is that knowing the rules is one thing, but the biggest roadblocks, they're not financial. They're the ones inside your own head.
Kiyosaki points to 4 big ones. First, there's just crippling fear, the fear of losing money. Then you've got cynicism, which is that nagging little voice that says, that'll never work. Third is just plain laziness, which is really just the habit of making excuses. And last, you have bad habits, like the classic one of paying all your bills first and only paying yourself if there's anything left over.
Let's just zoom in on laziness for a minute, because this is such a simple but powerful mind hack. Poor Dad's go-to phrase was, I can't afford it. That's a statement. It's a dead end. It literally shuts down your brain. But Rich Dad taught himself to ask a question instead. How can I afford it? See the difference? A question forces your brain to get creative and start looking for solutions.
And finally, let's just come back to fear for a second. Rich Dad's big insight here is that everyone feels fear about money, even rich people. The difference isn't the feeling, it's how they react to it. Most people play not to lose. They're driven by avoiding risk. The rich play to win. They know that every time they lose, it's just a lesson that makes them smarter for the next time.
So when you really think about it, most of our ideas about money weren't really chosen by us. They were handed down. The lessons of Poor Dad are kind of the default setting in our society and our schools. So the big question the book leaves you with is this. Now that you've heard the lessons of Rich Dad, which path are you going to consciously choose for yourself?